Hello? There we go. Well, since I recently finished Tsukihime, the remake, they advised me to read this one, Witch on the Holy Night, which allegedly the protagonist is Naoko, the magician who saved Shishiki by giving him his glasses, so he couldn't see the line and go insane. So I got quite intrigued to see this character, which we never had the chance to know better. So let's dive into it. It was a winter day 8 years prior when it happened. The solemn morning when she understood the value of life for the very first time. Her home was nestless on the side of the mountain. Around it was nothing but inhospitable wilderness. She had no neighbors or childhood friends to speak of. Things like traveling to school or playing outside were more trouble than they ought to be. Indeed, with its pure water and bright stars, it was a place rich with memories, both frustrating and halcyon. That was only during summer, though. Winter in those mountains were extremely frigid, each morning more severe than the last. Her father would drive her to the train station. After waiting 10 minutes for the engine to warm up and the ice windows to clear, her father would savor his morning coffee, leaving her to venture outside and rev the engine. Okay. Out the front door she would go, traversing the garden with icy breath until she reached that old sedan. As always, she inserted the key, then started the ignition. The engine rumbled to life. Just as she proudly finished the humble task she'd done so many times before. I don't want to sound so insensitive, but it was quite a laughable scream. A shrill scream pierced the air. She knew, even though it wasn't human, that the feeble sound was a cry of agony. A few moments passed. Her father came out and opened the hood of the car. Creaking fan belts. A monstrous-looking engine. And something that didn't belong. Oh no. There was a cat, a the look of it, and her two kittens. The three cats had been huddling for one in the engine compartment. The mother cat was missing his head. Poor thing. One of the kittens had been mangled beyond recognition by the engine bells. and surely died instantly. The other kitten, his face half covered in blood, panted faintly. He desperately clung to his mother rather than chunk of meat that was his mother with the last bit of life he could muster. Her father lamented their plight. The previous night had been especially cold. After he had returned home yesterday, the cats must have snuck under the hood, drawn by the warmth of the engine. They had slept next to the engine, and awoken to a storm of spinning belts. Cars in the 18 were not sealed particularly well, so it was not unheard of. Her father's voice seemed distant. She could only make out a small tuft of the kitten's grey fur. The rest of it was caked in the blood of his mother and brother. I can see its skull. The fragile life of a speckled kitten. Trembling and possibly blind, he continued to nuzzle against his dead mother's chest. She took the kitten into her arms and ran deep into the mountains, to her grandfather's house. Was it because she was overcome with regret? Or was it the shock of grief? Years later, she still wasn't sure. Fighting back the welling tears, she burst into her grandfather's workshop. Her grandfather was a magician who could do anything. She had never seen magic. She knew that magic was a fantasy straight out of fairy tales, but so was her grandfather. She had to find him. He was the only one who could help. So how she became a magician to save a kitten? Well, I think it's one of the best reasons to become a magician then. The Cave Dwelling magician saying differently. This kitten needs our help, she pleaded. Whether it was a simple task or a Herculean labor, her grandfather would not say. He simply granted the girl's child's wish, like a machine. The girl said. Before she knew it, however, she was holding a tiny corpse in her hands. His fur was cold. The warmth of life had left its body, and the tears she had fought so hard to hold back poured from her eyes. Regret spread through her chest like an endless grey sky. Her mind struggled to come to grip what had just occurred. The last 10 minutes were a total blank. Who she met? What she had known? It was all as if it had never happened. The only thing she was sure was that the life, once extinguished, can never return.
そこに誰かいるの?
That day, it was their mistake that gave birth to me. Indeed. Whatever occurred that day, it was a day of nostalgia and longing. This is the fairy tale of 8 years ago. The day they first met, that no magic can ever bring back. Arrogant, greedy, enable only to destroy. I must be a wolf. I don't have regrets. There is no looking back. If my pride has left you behind, my sincere condolences. But at any rate, I suppose it's my fate to die at the end of the Little Red Riding Hood. It was quite a morning. From her bed, she could see the sky was ashen, watercolor grey. The thermometer displayed 43 degrees Fahrenheit, a rather unforgiving temperature for November. Her stomach woke her up with a growl, pathetically reminder that she had completely missed breakfast. But lazy mornings like today's were, for her, a blessing. It was already well past 8 in the morning. On any ordinary weekend, tardiness would be unavoidable, but today, classes were cancelled in commemoration of the school anniversary. Gratefully, she had every intention of taking it easy for the first time in ages. Outside the window was a gloomy grey. It reminded her of more of the evening that morning. It was an unpleasant morning, by any stretch of the imagination. But having been up all night, until just 3 hours ago, she couldn't care less about the weather outside. All she cared about was more sleep. As long as she could spend her morning in bed, what was happening outside was of no concern to her. She shut the curtains. Then closed her eyes and tried to let sleep reclaim her.
せめてあと2時間ぐらいは凡庸な夢を見ていられますように。
Blissful slumber found her soon enough. Her consciousness faded. However, her simple requests would be mercilessly refused. A faint but shrill sound lingered in the ears. It was the unmistakable ring of a telephone. Much to her chagrin, out of habit, her eyes popped open.
こんな日に限って。
The telephone was situated in the foyer of the first floor. Answering it meant walking down a 30-foot corridor and going down a flight of stairs. In her sleep-deprived state, the distance seemed somewhere between incredibly far and astronomically far. The phone incessant ringing continued. She knew the caller would eventually give up if she ignored it, but she chose to fight the urge.
アリス出ないの。
She thought her housemate would get it, but she soon had to be abandoned all hope. The realization struck that her housemate did not have the day off from the school and was likely in class at their prestigious little hilltop academy. The caller proved incredibly persistent. That persistence made the volume of the ringing seem even louder.
もうせっかくの安眠を。
She was left with no choice but to get up, throw a tap on, and leave the room. She rubbed her hands together to warm her numb finger. The mansion's heating system was inadequate, to say the least. Which meant that winter was the very worst of an invited guest. Never more so than on a dreary morning like this, when one didn't need to use a thermometer to know how cold it was. The mansion sat in the mountains, and was surrounded by dense forests. Winter always arrived there first, before moving on to nearby towns. The robotic ring of the telephone reverberated through the long hallway. The mansion furnishing had been so perfectly maintained that it made the place feel unlived. It seemed lonelier than it did splendid. Coupled with a dreary morning, it could have been passed for a haunted house.
ま、幽霊屋敷そのものだけど。だいたい2人で住むには広すぎるのよ、この家は。
She counted more than 30 rings since it first began. The caller either had a lot of free time on their hands, or had a good understanding of the house's circumstances. She had a strong hunch that it was the latter. The window above looked out onto a gloomy sky. She asked him to catch the unrelenting ring and act as soon as possible. For she had a feeling that her happy morning might come to a close the moment she called it. It was here that a series of incidents began. Apologize for the lack of romance to this tale. For whether it be objectively true or merely supposition, it is always from gloomy and unassuming beginnings that extraordinary events are set into motion. The rain had subsided somewhat by the time she reached the school gate. Sunlight seemed to be playing peek-a-boo behind the clouds in the distance. It looked like it might be cleared up by early afternoon.
と言っても私には関係のない話だけど。
The weather reflected her luck. On top of being forced out on the house at such an early hour, she had to suffer through a winter rain. I'm getting a bad feeling about this. The sinking feeling she only grew as she passed through the entrance and headed inside. She didn't encounter any other students along the way. Or did she see anyone taking part in the club activities either? The reception desk to the faculty room simply read faculty closed. The school had given all of the students the day off, except those explicitly summoned, like her. A fact that reared her more and more as the minute passed. She opened the door to the faculty room and headed toward the desk she had visited a number of times before. The man at the desk wore a plain shirt and suit that were nonetheless neatly pressed. Slim framed glasses adorned his face, giving off an amicable yet cunning air. The mild-mannered image, this mid-20 man, presented clashed with the cigarette he smoked. He didn't appear to have noticed her yet.
Yamashiro-sensei.
She closed the door with a bang. Showing no response to the sudden sound, Mr. Yamashiro lifted his head.
Yeah, ohayo, Aozaki-kun. 要件は聞いているかな?
はい、1時間前に自宅で事前に何の相談もなく。
Having graduated from this high school myself, Mr. Yamashiro was not much older than the rest of the students. For that reason, the student preferred him over the other teachers. He always had something interesting to talk about. I kept conversation casual. In fact, he seemed more like an older student than a teacher, but she fortunately didn't share her fellow student fondness for him. She was of the opinion that teachers should come across as more austere. Like an iron fist that could inspire both love and hate in equal measure, not a body to joke and pal around with. It was the exact opposite of how she felt a teacher should be. It was only the natural that her manner towards him would be forced and unfriendly. Not that she will never be wild make friendly small talk.
はあ、今日もご機嫌斜めみたいだね、君は。
それは先生の気のせいです。今日だけ特別という話ではありませんから。
The matter-of-fact answer perfectly matched to the displeasure displayed on her face. Her bad mood from having to get up early and the tiredness from staying up late must have collectively made her look positively adversarial.
そう？ならいいんだけどね。彼にはそう辛く当たらないでくれよ。僕らじゃ正直どう扱っていいかわからないところもあるし。
先生、その件ですけど、私まだ詳しい話を聞かされていないのですが。
As Mr. Yamashiro met her piercing eyes, he finally understood the reason behind her tone, as though he put out his cigarette.
電話じゃあなんて聞いたの？
転入生の紹介をするとだけです。理由も脈絡もない説明でした。
One of Mr. Yamashita's eyebrows stood up, impressed with the brevity of her answer. He could see that she was angry, not because she had been called to school on her day off, but because she hadn't been told why she was here. Mr. Yamashiro chuckled sympathetically.
先生、これが笑い話ならそろそろ帰っていいでしょうか。
いや、ごめんごめん、謝るよ。冗談じゃなくて真面目な話なんだ。ちょっと君の手を借りたくてね。
本当に転入生の問題で？
うん、訳ありというか難しいというか。彼、宗十郎くんというんだけど、ちょっといろいろとずれていてね。僕らが案内してあげるより同世代の君の方が適任だと思ったんだ。
She threw him an amused look. It was negligent of them to be pushing teaching duties on her, but she did wonder how exactly this transfer student was peculiar. Maybe he meant the student had behavioral problems, or was difficult somehow. But peculiar? She didn't have the slightest idea what that meant.
ずれてるなんてそう使わない表現だけど。
She had her doubts, but stepped them aside from her now. This wasn't the time to get distracted by more concerns. The fact remained that this conversation was all the peculiar she could handle. She needed more information. She was already beginning to fantasize about saying no and curling up in her warm bed at home.
一つ質問があります。
何？あ、学年は君と同じ2年生だよ。性格は落ち着きがあって人の話をよく聞くタイプ。裏を返せば覇気がないとも取れるけど、それならそれで付き合いやすいだろ。
So what defined him exactly as peculiar then?
青崎くんとはクラスは違うけど、きっと仲良くな。
そういったことは本人から直接聞きますし、測ります。そうではなく、なぜ私なんでしょうか。
Though her tone was still stern, it was clear that she was willing to cooperate. She had decided to put her feeling of dissatisfaction aside and focus on the task at hand. Forcing herself to act empathetic in spite of her self-absorbed nature was something she was used to. Paradoxically, this force of will was also the reason teacher put so much faith in her. To a point. At times, her straight shattered expectation, and on those occasions they were left with no choice but to treat it like a natural disaster and weather it until it passed. That was how Mr. Yamashiro had come to deal with her as over the past year.
もう一度だけ聞きます、山城先生。それで、なぜ私なんでしょうか。
Pressured by a question without a clear yes or no answer, he answered.
うん、それはね。別に青崎くんが先生方に敬遠されているのと同じぐらい信頼されていて、学校のためなら教師も生徒も一緒くたに切って捨てる鉄の生徒会長だからじゃないよ。
それ以外にこんな呼びつけを受ける理由はないと思いますけど。
Her eyes did nothing to hide her disbelief as she glared at him. Strength far beyond that of an ordinary 17-year-old girl, coupled with the youthful beauty of one. Mr. Yamashiro let slip a genuine smile, admiring the miraculous balance of qualities.
いや、責務だけでいいなら僕がやってるさ。この人選に関しちゃ教師や生徒会長といった役職も関係ないよ。なんていうか、こんな頼みを損得抜きで聞いてくれるのは君だけだと思ってね。適任ですからと強く推薦したわけ。
In other words, he knew she wouldn't say no.
山城先生。
うわ、怖っ。もう睨まない睨まない。言ったろ、僕にはともかく彼には笑顔でって。とまあ納得してくれたならすぐに移動しよう。もう随分待たせてしまっているからね。それと雨の中ご苦労様。帰りはもちろん車で送るよ。
Mr. Yamashiro stood up gracefully. Yoink. I'm a good, thanks, she replied, before turning and walking out of the faculty room. He had been waiting for about an hour. While he did, the rain shower lightened into a drizzle. His mind wandered, and he listened to the sound of the raindrops. The room was filled with neatly arranged rectangular tables. He was the only one there. Quite some time had passed since he had been brought to his room and asked to wait. Even the best behaved student might have grown dissatisfied or anxious with the situation by now, but the boy stuck to the spot like a scarecrow. He was chilled to the bone. It was the end of November, and the low temperature in the morning had marked the start of winter. The room was not much warmer. The heater hadn't been turned on. He had missed the teacher telling him to turn it on, or he'd never seen one in his life. He breathed lightly on his breathing finger as he aimlessly surveyed his surroundings. This dreary place was apparently a meeting room. The other student might have considered it a wonderful place to meet, but to him it was a drab and overly spacious. It was a lifeless place that reminded him of an arid cave. Stuck in this cold room with absolutely nothing to do, his mind turned to what they wanted to discuss. Unable to come up with a solid answer, he returned his attention to the sound of the rain. The rain hardly resembled the rain in the mountains. Food, he could still recognize it, barely. His smell and sound were harsher, but at the end of the day, there was still rain. So even this world, alien as it was, could have something in common with the mountains. The trivial detail perked him up a little. He liked how the town looked soaked in rain. Naturally, he preferred sunny weather, but he liked rain in his own way. The fog from the rain had soaked by the scent of the soil, and it reminded him of home. It was times like this that he was able to numb the anxiety the city gave him. But then he let out a discouraged sigh. How pathetic. He had hardly been here 2 weeks, and thoughts of his hometown still made him sad. Perhaps feeling that he was being unfamiliar to his new life, he composed himself and continued to wait patiently. As he having passion for distraction, his attention returned to the sound of the rain once more. Wet like this didn't seem to be particularly hard for him. He quietly endured the numbing cold and the hour alone with calm, deep breaths. As the saying goes, good feats come to those who wait. But struck by it of his or not, he was astonishingly patient. It was certainly helping out in this moment. She, on the other hand, was livid. The profile of the transfer student had been explained to her on her way to the meeting room. She was told he had lived his whole life up in the mountain without any electricity. That meant more than half of civilized society would have been an utter mystery to him.
なんて絶望的な断絶。戦後どころか戦前の話じゃない。ロビンソンにも程がある。
She had every right to be angry. His village had apparently remained isolated in the mountain for many years. Contact with the villages in the foothill of the mountain only occurred once a month or so, which was unfathomable in modern Japan. Although expressway and Japan Rail, the all-nation railways now, span the country like arteries, it was entirely impossible for mountain villages like his to exist. But she couldn't imagine how someone born to such circumstances would think or live.
電気がないって、村に行き渡っていないだけで公衆電話ぐらいはあったんですよね。
なかったそうだよ。こっちに暮らすようになってまず驚いたのが電話だそうだし。電話って便利ですねなんて真顔で言われてね。そういえばそうだなぁと再確認させられたぐらいだよ。
She shot a sidelong glare his way as he laughed. He seemed at the naivety of the country boy to cheer up Mr. Yamashiro a bit.
駐在もいないってことか。うちも実家は山奥ですから電気が通っていないのはありえないとは言いませんけど。そいつ学校も知らないんですか？
うん。どんなものかは知っていたそうだけど、実際来るのは今日が初めてらしい。それで緊張していたのかな。あまり会話も弾まなかった。ああいうのも野生児っていうのかな。狼に育てられた狼少年みたいな。あ、いや、探検隊の話だね。怖いな青崎くん。冗談だって。そう睨まないでくれ。大丈夫。話してみた感じおとなしい子だったから。なんていうか言葉の通じない小動物みたいな感じ。
山城先生、その例え気休めになってませんから。
As she gave her blunt reply, she tried to simulate in her mind what life without electricity would be like. But the thought of it took her a sour mood from bad to worse. After all, it was a world she had never known. She could understand why the teacher had given up. She, too, wanted to give up and return to their warm bed, but her good-for-nothing pride was holding her hostage. Not only the teacher believed she was up to the task, but she also believed she could do it. It wasn't that easy to go back on her word no matter how bad things look after the fact. She walked along the hallway, the rain pattering in the background. The meeting room was already in sight. With a furrowed brow, she fixed her long hair in anticipation of meeting the unknown stranger within. Her elegant strides were like those of a confident general going into battle.
いや、青崎くん、君を信頼してる僕だけど念のため確認しておくよ。なんていうか優しくね。できれば笑顔とか作れないかな。
作り笑いは苦手です。一応努力しているつもりですが。
ああ、そうなんだ。それはよかった。いやー、ほんとよかった。青崎くんにも苦手なものってあったんだね。
Mr. Yamashiro's shoulders slumped the second they reached the meeting room. As he put his hand to the door, his eyes seemed to say to her, "Be nice, please." This only made her more irritated.
分かってるわよ、愛想が悪いってのは。でも笑顔なんて意識して作るものじゃないんだし。だいたい そういうインスタントな人付き合いなら飛び丸の方が向いてるって。
She sighed about her social shortcomings, but then it occurred to her that being called into school on her day off while sleep deprived was anything to smile about anyway. She also thought the person responsible for this mess would be better off attending elementary school. It might not be his fault, but neither was it her duty or obligation to do the teacher's work for them. At the very least, they could have used their brains and organized all this on a normal school. They another complaint she wanted to voice out later.
いや、というか敵。なんであろうと敵。悪いけど、情状酌量以前に敵。間が悪いのはお互い様っていうか、ほんと、なんでよりにもよってこんな忙しい時に。
Her pounding headache from a lack of sleep had boosted aggressive by 10%. No matter how harmless the guy on the other side of the room may be, anyone who disturbed her sleep was the enemy. So relatable. And just as she was reaching peak annoyance, Mr. Yamashiro opened the door to the meeting room. The room slowly slid into view. She didn't care for formalities. Just looked straight ahead and stormed into the room, and found herself face to face with a most unusual opponent. Before we go on, let's see from another perspective. Turning back the clock just a little. You don't have to do anything. For some, these worlds are preciously luxury. For others, they're unbearably torture. For the proactive girl, it was definitely the former, though she had been too suspicious of the motives of anyone giving her such a gift to accept it. For the passive boy, it was definitely the latter. A bitter thorn that made him homesick, though at this very moment his mind was still distracted with the wait for his face to reveal a discontent. He maintained perfect posture and he stared at the grey sky. He had already waited a whole hour, but figured they must have had their reason for making him wait. And as long as he had the sound of the rain to soothe him, he could keep on waiting.
でも、そろそろ9時を過ぎるのか。どうなんだろう。
He had been vaguely keeping track of the time as he listened to the rain. Due to the holiday, the school building was completely silent, except for the pattern of the rain on the window. The bolt felt as damp as the air. It was then he heard the heavy clatter of footsteps approaching.
よかった。忘れられているかと思った。
He could hear two sets of footsteps, one heavier set belonging to an adult. He breathed a sigh of relief as the door slid open.
すまないね。ずいぶんとお待たせしちゃって。
First person you saw was a man wearing glasses and an awkward smile. That's Mr. Yamashiro, the one who brought me here.
って、あれ里中先生、いないんですか？ひどいなあ。話し相手になってあげてと言ったのに。
Mr. Yamashiro scratched his head, looking increasingly apologetic. And then, from behind him, with a tight lip expression that made it clear she didn't want to be there, a dark-haired girl with a determined look in her eyes appeared. Sojiro gulped. The sound of the rain on the window faded into nothingness. That's when he knew. This was how it felt when time stood still. She blinked quite quickly a few times, as if taken aback. Why was anyone's guess? The boy was everything she expected a naive country to look like. However, she felt something she couldn't understand. His eyes widened slightly, as if taken aback. The reason was obvious. Putting his feeling into words was a different matter altogether, so we will never know exactly what he experienced in that moment. That's when it hit him. He sensed he had been touched by the hands of destiny.
紹介するよ。彼が転入生の静木宗十郎くん。で、こっちの彼女が静木くんの案内役。うちの生徒会長で休日を押して新しい仲間の案内役を買って出てくれた青崎青子くんだ。
His voice and the sound of the rain seemed distant. This is how they first met. Such was their start, for better or worse, like a ephemeral beauty of fireworks. It was commonly believed among the students that Aoka was always in a foul mood. While this gossip was 90% prejudice, as Aoko simply didn't have time to be irritated 24/7. The reality was she simply didn't want to explain herself all the time. And therefore seemed angry about something, obvious or not. This idle gossip did, however, lead to her earning the title of one of the school's 7 deadly threats. The remaining 10% of the gossip was right on the mark. Aoko herself often had the feeling that her tendency to feel animosity towards harmless things was akin to what a chronic headache sufferer might experience. Today fell under the 10%. For today her anger was pure, and the childish and selfish displays was befitting of her actual age. The meeting room was dimly lit, awash to the colors of the rain. To reduce electricity cost, school regulation forbid the use of lights during the day. This was the setting the three of them found themselves in. Her first impression was that his calm demeanor reminded her of a field of white windflowers. In spite of his perfect posture, he seemed subdued and frail. I thought describing him as a meek would be going too far. At the very least, he was passive. Even through his uniform, she could see that he was thinner than average. His dark hair was unkempt, and he came across as a wholly forgettable boy. If she had to look at him in a more positive light, she would describe him as a more young boy than a boy. Young man than a boy. It was his calm demeanor that made him seem more mature. Was that the cause of Aoko's responsiveness? Reaction? He seemed almost too at home in the meeting room, and she was left with the impression that it was her as the teacher, not the outsider, who were the guest here. She felt an undeniable aggravation building within her, almost as if her right to be here was a question. Aoko felt herself rising her natural defenses.
信じられない。私、今わけもなく怒ってない。
She hated not understanding things, her own emotion in particular. It pained her less than you would imagine for a perfectionist like her, but it still nagged her like a thorn in her side.
いやーほら青崎くん挨拶してあげなくちゃ。
Mr. Yamashira's attempt to relieve the tension was quietly irritating.
挨拶？
After casting a nasty glance in the teacher's direction, Aoko turned to face the boy. From an outsider perspective, it might look like a stare down. And in that instant, the culmination of her emotion instead hurtled toward the innocent boy and skewered him.
いや待たせたねしずきくん。
Hearing his name, Soichiro came to his senses. So under his perspective now. His sun gaze shook loose. He took a deep breath to clear his head. Looking up to nerves, Mr. Yamashiro broke out a smile and turned to the girl standing beside him.
紹介するよ。彼が転入生の静木宗十郎くん。で、こっちの彼女が静木くんの案内役。うちの生徒会長で休日を押して新しい仲間の案内役を買って出てくれた青崎青子くんだ。
Having been introduced by Mr. Yamashiro, the girl took a step forward. Her eyes were merciless. Her stare, an unspoken threat to violently trample her opponent. Soichiro, on the other hand, managed to keep his own composure despite the shock at how confrontational she appeared. He had never been greeted quite like this before, but supposed, mistakenly, that it was how people threatened each other in the city. The exchange must have looked quite dramatic to an onlooker. A girl ready to brawl. An earnest country boy desperate to understand. It was a murderous limbo, especially for anyone in the room with them. Like Mr. Yamashiro, for example. While he had thought he had made the right decision in choosing an honor student to help him out, she was in an inexplicably bad mood, and the tension in the air was undeniable. It was this moment that he realized his failure. His realization had come far too late. One false move, and this girl, for whom no problem was too large, was becoming a storm that would rock the very foundation of the school. Just as the almighty Joker card could bring either fortune or disaster, the sole teacher who had been presented at the time would come to bear the blame for the scandal that ensued.
イケてる。二人とも気は合うようだね。それじゃあ僕はこの辺でいいかな。
Mr. Yamashiro laughed nervously as he crept towards the door.
僕は職員室にいるから終わったら来るように。いいかい、青崎くん。くれぐれもだぜ。なんていうか、生徒会長としての度量の広さをこの際僕に信じさせてほしいかな。
Mr. Yamashiro left, leaving the two in locked-eye state, one in which one set of eyes was doing all the glaring. All that remained in the room was a naive boy and a cross-armed guarded girl. The two lingered in silence. They resembled shogi player agonizing over the first moves, though ultimately it was only Aoko that had considered the scene that carefully. She decided to put her irritation aside for the time being. With no reason to feel revulsion for him in the first place, she sighed deeply and faced Soichiro.
まあいいわ。 山城先生がヒルアンドンなのは今に始まったことじゃないし。それであなた名前は？
Her tone was nothing if not reproachful, though he had done nothing to offend her. But the boy failed to pick up on it. Incapable of such venom himself.
ああ、静木宗十郎かな。君は青崎さんだったね。
He has a pleasant voice. For whatever reason, he came across as happy in his response.
3はいいわ、柄じゃないから。こっちは静木くんでいい？
いいって何が？
だから呼び方、くんづけでいいかって聞いてるの。何よ、おかしなこと言った？私。
いや、すごく。
The boy replied immediately as if it was a natural response, but quickly second-guessed himself.
いや、いいんだ。ごく一般的なんだろう。静木くんで頼む。君は青崎でいいんだよな。
よろしく。
She followed her blunt reply with a swift turn away from him. While she was hardly thrilled at the prospect of the task at hand, it had been entrusted to her, and it was her personal policy to see it through to the end.
悪いけど、優しくしてあげる気はないから。時間も惜しいし、手早く行くわよ。
それは助かる。やっぱり時間は大切だ。
Aoko's blunt rancor was lost on him once again. Humans tend to be overly cautious about being ignored, whatever form that takes. But despite being peeved at landing none of her attacks, Aoko did her best to act professional and direct her guests into the hallway. There was no sunlight in the hallway, nor any sign of life. It was more like a prison than a cave that was the meeting room. As it dawned on Aoko that the hallway matched her mood, she sighed once again.
まず聞いておくけど、山城先生から聞いたことは理解してる？
ああ、学校の仕組みについては分かった。この建物全部に同い年の人間がいるなんてちょっと想像できないけど。
そう、よかったわね。
Aoko rubbed her forehead. This Sojiro kid had no idea what he was in for. Apparently, all he had heard about school was that it was a place where a lot of people met to study. High school teachers imparted to students their knowledge in various fields of study, while fostering discipline and creativity. But never did Aoko imagine that she would have to explain the concept of school itself to someone. Yes, fundamentals were important, but this was absurd. She had serious doubt whether she could even handle classes, but Mr. Yamashiro insisted that things would work out somehow. Sojiro had managed to pass the transfer exam after all, barely.
まあ私には関係ないけど。
Aoko grumbled mentally as she walked down the hallway. She consoled herself with the fact that today would be the only day she will spend with this boy out of time. Or at least, she will try to keep it that way.
青崎、
He asked, calmly trying to get her attention.
何？
こっちも一つ聞いていいかな。
だから何？
俺の気のせいだと思うんだが、君はまるで何かを睨んでいるように見える。やはり今朝は悪いものでも。
His gaze revealed earnest concern, as if asking her if she remembered to eat breakfast. That face. It was like another hammer to her head. It was true that Aoko had been glaring at Sujiro the entire time. Glaring red-hot dagger, in fact. Not just him, but the universe. Even on her best day, her roommates used to remark,
青子の視線は普通の人には厳しいわ。もう少し多くのことに寛大になるべきね。
Our maid? She had been warned that her emotions were so naked on her face that people threatened her like a powder keg. How naive could be the boy that could not pick up on this?
私をバカにしてるってわけじゃなさそうよね、この場合。
And when she found her own attempt to reassure herself unconvincingly, it began to dawn on Aoko far too late. That compared to her, this laid-back transfer student might as well have been from another planet.
いいわ。言葉にしないとわからないようだから言うけど、まるでじゃなくて、ズバリそうなの。あなたの気のせいじゃなくて、私は視線で遠回しに感情を表現してたの。いちいち声に出すのも会話にするのも面倒だから。
In response to their words, the Martian clapped his hands together.
なるほど。どうしてそうしたいのかはわからないが、確かにそっちの方が手っ取り早い意思表現だ。
Sojiro accepted her reasoning without argument. Though he still had no idea what kind of emotion she was trying to express. It was as if he could hear the words but didn't grasp the meaning. Ideas that should have connected were instead separated into blocks.
確かにずれてるわ、こいつ。
Mr. Yamashiro's words made sense to her now. What was odd about the boy went way beyond the naivety. A stranger in a strange land he might be, but he was only civilized to forgive him Some jet lag induced confusion.
じゃ、とりあえずあなたの教室に行くから。
She had regained her composure. Sojiro raised his hand and stopped in his tracks.
あと一つ。
Aoko wanted for Sojiro to continue. The boy was too patient to a fault. She rubbed her forehead with her hand again, nursing a weird feeling of uneasiness.
これもちょっとした疑問なんだが、なんで君は怒ってるんだ？怒るのが商売とか、そういう家柄の人なのか
A long silence. Though she knew it wouldn't change the situation, she remembered her regret at answering the phone that morning. He meant no harm. She repeated this thought like a mantra in an attempt to keep her impulses in check.
別にあなたのせいじゃないから気にする必要はないわ。ただ、この一瞬とお昼まで眠っていた場合を計りにかけたら、あまりに利益の違いがあって頭を抱えただけよ。
With a big answer, she started to walk away. He turned her gaze away from his true stranger named Sojiro Shizuki. While what constitutes normal is certainly up for debate, most would undoubtedly refer to him as so. He was a simple and nice boy with nondescript features. He were an ice cream flavor, he would be vanilla. And Sojiro found Aoko to be very businesslike and full of life. There was a certain purpose to her movement, as they began and ended in an ordinary fashion. The way her finger raised when she pointed at things. The way she made her way across the hallways and classrooms. The way she would occasionally glance back at him to make sure he was keeping pace. Each and every moment was impressive, but he couldn't take his eyes off her. Aoko showed to him homeroom class C of the 11th grade. The room certainly displayed more of a human touch than the previous meeting room, but Sojiro was none of the wiser as to its function. Aoko gave a brief explanation before they visited individual subject classrooms, as well as the gym, cafeteria, locker room, and school infirmary. Sojiro asked so many questions that much time passed before they reached the AV room on the second floor.
まずいな。
Sojiro stopped, looking genuinely concerned.
あと20分経つと1時だ。
嘘でしょ？うちの校舎そんな広くないわよ。
The tour had begun around 10, which meant that the 3 hours had passed. A tour of a school shouldn't take anywhere near this long.
そうだった 行く先々で根掘り葉掘り聞かれちゃそりゃ何時間でも経つわ。日が暮れていないのが不思議なくらいね。
Autoclared da Shojiro. She was being sarcastic, of course, knowing full well he will never pick up on it. Is he? To her surprise, he looked down apologetically, unable to hide his dejection.
なんだこいつ。ちゃんとしてるっちゃ。
The guy before her now was nothing like earlier. In contrast to seeing his once impenetrable winner when they first met, she found herself feeling sympathetic. Momentarily, at least, until her irritation returned to full force.
で、何がまずいの？覚えることが多すぎてパンクしたなんて言わないでね。
いや、それもあるけど、学校のことは別にして1時になるとまずいんだ。
Sojiro gets wonder as he worries about something. If he has worried about the weather, he would have had time, seeing that there was no wind of it this whole way.
へえ、時間を気にするってことは用事があるのね。そう。人の予定を引っかき回しておいて自分だけ好きなようにやろうって言うんだ。なんだ、顔に似合わずいい人ね、君。
いや、褒めても何も出ないぞ。
誰も褒めちゃいないわよ。
She yelled at him, unable to hold back her fury.
で、それで一体何の用なの
？Sojiro face lit up as he finally understood what she was asking him.
そこは秘密にしておきたい。
He said with a perfectly straight face.
慣れ始めたつもりだったけど、こいつのこういったテンポには失神しそうになるわ。
Her frustration was natural. Still, she did everything she could to stifle her feeling and fake a smile.
しずきくん？
She took a step forward.
秘密だってば。
Feeling the mood change drastically, Sojiro took a step back. And another, and another. No matter how many steps he took back, she kept edging towards him. She was smiling, but he thought he could see the blood boiling beneath her skin.
これ、最後の質問にしとくわね。あなた、私をからかって楽しい？
He had no intention of mocking her, though at this point he doubted presenting any evidence to prove this would do much to erase the forced smile on her face.
わかった。説明する。
his arm raised in surrender. She halted their advance and freed her face from that unseemly smile.
実は1時からアルバイトがあるんだ。でもここはそういうの禁止なんだろ？
そうだけど、あ、禁止されてるから秘密にしようと思ったの？バカね。それなら許可さえ下りていれば問題ないわよ。
知ってる。試験の時に許可をもらってる。
へえ。
Her office lit up as she realized he might not be the piece of work she thought him to be. Yet,
しかし許可は一つしかもらえなかった。
一つって、あなた掛け持ちでバイトしてるの？
これでも2件減らしたんだ。生活費だけで大変なのに学費まで稼がなくちゃいけない。なのに働き先は一つだけというのはあんまりだと思わないか？
いや、あんまりなのはあなたの方だと思うけど。
though still irritated, her opinion of him changed a little. She was impressed that he was able to take care of his tuition and living expenses all on his own. She could also empathize with having no time to oneself. Her anger began to subside. The worst part-time job were about the last thing she ever expected to hear out of this country boy's mouth.
そういうことなら仕方ないわね。いいわ、行きなさいよ。事情は分かったから。
青崎はいいのか？
She had no idea what his question meant, but she had at least understood that he was trying to be considerate, which also took her by surprise. She figured he would be just a defense about people feeling, as he was about everything else.
別に、私もこのまま帰るから。
She thought it best that the boat stopped by the faculty room. Mr. Yamashiro had mentioned that the transfer procedure had already been complete, so all that remained was for him to sign off on her duties.
先生、案内終わりました。
それはお疲れ様。しずきくんもお疲れ様。それで校舎。
ありがとうございます。なんというかとても学校ですね。
そうかそうか。うん、明日から頑張りなさい。
She had no interest whatsoever in this pointless wrap-up meeting.
山城先生のことは気にしないでいいわ。教え子に厄介なことを押し付けてふんぞり返っているぐらい職員室が好きなんだから、何時間でも待ってるでしょ。いえ、待ってるべきじゃない？
そうか。青崎がいいんならいいんだな。
There it was again. Whatever Sujiro was getting at, Aoko had no idea.
それじゃあ行くよ。今日はありがとう。
今日だけよ、今日だけ。
She shooed him away with her hand. His face bent into a broad smile, as if he found the gesture endearing. It was a softer expression she had grown accustomed to seeing out of him. It was the kind of smile that would make anyone smile back. Well, most people at least. Oko Otaki didn't betray the slightest hint of a smile.
それじゃあまた。
And with that friendly farewell, Sojiro walked toward the end of the hallway, or so she thought, before returning into the next class over. Sojiro headed straight for one of the classroom's window. Whereupon he opened it with ease. The chilly November air filled the room, as the soft sound of the rain doubled in volume. In that instant, she realized his intention with opening the window. She wished she hadn't.
いや、待て待て待て。
He already had one leg out of the window when she dashed to stop him.
何するつもりよ、あんたは。
何ってアルバイトに行くんだけど。
その窓は人が出入りするところじゃないの。だいたいここ何階だと思ってるの？
She saw the light of understanding dawn in his eyes.
死ぬところだった。2階から降りたら危なすぎる。
危ないのはあんたの頭。
Her insult went right over his head.
あのね、こっちじゃ窓から人は出入りしないの。さっき言っとくべきだったわ。
知ってるよ。時間がないんで慌ててたんだ。ありがとう。これからは気をつける。
I'll be taking a break, I really need it. Thanks for watching, I'll be here in a bit.